Hi boys and girls, I'm back today to talk all about makeup primers. Before we get into it, as always, if I could ask you to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and please share it with any of your makeup loving friends, and follow me over at Instagram at steak_and_brush. So primers are very confusing. Because it's something that it's relatively new. And primers aren't necessarily very transparent in what they are and what they do. I think a lot of people mistakenly think you need to put on a primer to make your makeup stay longer, and that's not necessarily the case. Primer is definitely something you don't have to do. But it serves two general purposes, and these purposes don't necessarily work together. Some primers are made to make your makeup stay longer. So that's one benefit, but not all primers do that. Some primers fulfill a special makeup or skincare need, and those ones don't necessarily make your makeup stay longer. So you're calling them the same thing, and they don't necessarily do the same thing. So there's a lot about primers. I'm gonna just try to hit some of the bullet points with you and share some of what I have that works for me, and for the types that I don't use, give you some of the ideas of things that do, from just general what I've heard online, what I've done a little bit of research on. Okay, so we've got the two basic primers that we're looking at. When you're looking at long lasting, most of those are going to be a silicone based, and then the ones that do things for you will be silicone or water-based. That's a whole nother thing to get into as well. All right, so when you're looking at the way primers work, you've got things that are like serum-y, like these two that I have here that just come in droppers. You have pumps that have silicone or cream in them. You have sticks that look like a glue stick that do different things. I mean, we've got just ones that look like moisturizers. We have tubs that have like a moisturizing cream in them. And there are sprays. I actually don't have any sprays. I guess technically the MAC Prep and Prime is a spray. And then we've got these new putties that are coming and that have come out. So we have all kinds of things that you're looking for. So where do you start? What I want to preface everything by saying is that what works for one person, even with a specific makeup, isn't necessarily going to work for you. Your skin is very unique to you. You've got different chemistry, you've got different, some people are oily, some people are dry, some people have pores, some people have wrinkles. It's really what you have to kind of play with it. If you have just one foundation that you use, it's probably a little easier. You play around with it a little bit, you find the one that works, and you're good. If you have lots of foundations like I do, it's good to have lots of different primers if you're a primer person, so that you can see what works best and what doesn't, and you can mix and match. I mean, I don't use any of these primers with absolutely everything. All right, so what are you looking for? If you're looking for long wearing, like I said, most likely you want to stick with a silicone primer. There are just tons of them out there. I can't really give you a specific recommendation on that, but I would just say, just kind of play around with things and see what you like. For long wearing, I actually find, I think setting sprays and fixing sprays work better for that. When you're looking for things that do, primers that do specific things for you. That's when I can more help you out. All right, so things that they can do. They can help the makeup stick to your face. They can change the finish of a foundation. They can do some color correcting, pore filling, hydrating, oil control, line blurring, all of those kinds of things and issues are things that primers can help you with. So, do you have problems with your makeup, your foundation specifically? It kind of moves around on your face. Some people really have problems with that. I don't typically, although I have had a few that have done that. You're probably looking more for something like a gripping primer. I do not have any gripping primer, since that is something that I don't have a problem with, but I've heard great things about the Milk Gripping Primer. It comes in a little tube like this. This is a Wet n Wild primer stick, but it comes in something like this where you just roll it up, and when I say this looks like a glue stick, I've been told it feels kind of like a glue stick. You can actually feel the tackiness, and that's going to help keep your makeup from just moving around on your face. So if that's your issue, look for something like that. Do you have a foundation that you love, but it's very matte, and you want it to be a little dewier? Then you want to go for something that has a gloss to it. I wasn't a big fan of this because I don't particularly go for this, and this is going to be definitely more for people with drier skin, but this is the Touch in Soul, and this is the Glassy. If you put this on underneath, you're going to get a more dewy finish. If you're looking on the very high end, I know everybody raves about the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood filter that you can use underneath your foundation to give you kind of a sparkly glow there. You can also use it as a liquid highlighter and all kinds of other things, but that's one that gets a lot of talk. If you have oily skin or a dewy foundation that you want it to be more matte because you like the foundation but don't like the shine, then you want to go with a mattifying foundation more like Smashbox has a Photo Finish mattifying. That's a little more on the expensive range, but Revlon Photo Ready is supposed to be great for that as well, and that's definitely drugstore pricing. So if that's your issue, that's the kind of stuff you want to go for. Some people need color correction. Specifically if you have, and when I say color correction, I'm not talking about the little palettes where it's green and red and yellow and all of that stuff. This is more if you have a ruddy complexion, lots of redness, then you want a primer that can smooth that out. And those will tend to be a little green, so don't freak out about that. Again, I don't have that issue, but the things I would go with just from research and what other people are talking about. There's a NYX Studio Perfect, and that is drugstore pricing. And for the high-end pricing, there's Makeup Forever. It's called Step 1. Both of those are green, but that will smooth your complexion out when it's more than just you've got a little red dot. You put a little bit on there. You need it for the whole face. Pore filling. There are a couple of different things with pore filling, because this is a big thing that people like in their makeup or in the primers. Pore filling are almost always going to be silicone. And I've got a couple here. I've got the e.l.f. that is it's just a creamy kind of, but it has a slip to it because it's very silicone-y. And both the Tatcha and this e.l.f. is supposed to be a pretty good dupe for it, where it says putty. It's not like silly putty kind of putty, or it's not sticky. It has a slip to it, but it just I'm trying to think. There's nothing that I can really think to compare it to, but it's very kind of slippery. These kinds of products, what they do is they go over your skin, and if you picture your pore as like a little pothole in the road, it fills them in and smooths them out. So you're actually putting stuff in your pores. If you are not prone to acne, that's okay. If you have oily skin or your things break you out a lot, you don't want to be cramming stuff into your pores that are going to cause problems. So that's when you want to look for something that has a chemical in it, or chemical has a bad connotation. Chemicals aren't bad. Everything's chemicals. You're made up of chemicals. Your food's made up of chemicals. But so we'll call it an extract. You want something like this that actually, it's not going to last as long as the pore shrinking effect. But this Touch and Soul No Problem Prime Essence, it is, you've probably seen me use it tons of times. It has a very watery consistency. And the lid just dropped. And it actually has a chemical or an extract in there that are going to temporarily shrink your pores. So instead of clogging them, that's how they help with the pores. So that might, it's not, like I said, it's not as long lasting, but it may be a better alternative for you. Hydrating. If you have super dry skin, your primer is sort of an extra added layer of moisturizer. I have a couple of them here. While I have dry skin, I tend to use other primers. This one I don't think does this much, but I just have it, so I wanted to show it as an example. This is from Believe Beauty. The Pretty and Primed Stay Put Makeup Primer. I just think it's, it's kind of just like a moisturizer. It has a little bit of tint, so that's nice. But if I need a moisturizer or a hydrating primer, I'm going to look more for something like this. This is the Tarte Base Tape. Came out with their Shape Tape range, but it's a hydrating primer, and that is going to help you if you find that you're dry a lot and after you put makeup on you see like little lines or cracks. This is something more that you want to go with. Let's see, line filling. Now you're not going to find anything that is going to magically wipe away wrinkles. But if you have some micro lines, like some things starting in the crow's feet, maybe a little bit in your forehead, that kind of thing, you want a line, they call them line filling or line blurring. They kind of work the same way as the pore ones. One that I've heard rave reviews about is the Strivectin line blurring. And again, it's not fixing them, it's just blurring them a little bit, and it's not a magic away. You're not going to put it on and look 40 years younger, but it's just going to kind of help hide those things a little bit. Like I said, though, the biggest thing is to experiment with what you're looking for. So, pick out, what is your biggest need? Is it that you need it to, fix your redness? Do you want to cover your pores? Pick out the thing that bothers you most about your skin, and that's the kind of primer you want. And then you may have to play around with a couple brands. I have some of these, that people have given me because they didn't work well on them, but they work great on me. I have some of these things that I will swear by, but other people just can't use them. You just kind of have to play around a little bit. And so I would recommend going to the drugstore first, unless you're made of money, which, terrific, send me some. What else do I have to tell you? Okay, here's one other thing that's very important that I want to tell you about primer. I told you you've got silicone and water-based primer. They're not interchangeable with the type of foundation you wear. So if any, a lot of these are going to be silicone. So, and ones that do a lot of those benefits are silicone, which is great. Silicone sometimes gets a bad rap. I don't have a problem with it all. But if you have a water-based foundation, and most foundations now are silicone based. If you look at the ingredients list, they're going to have things that end in CONE. I mean, all of them will say water in the ingredients, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're a water-based primer. When you see a lot of things that say CONE at the end of the ingredient list, that's a silicone-based primer. Silicone, like I said earlier, has a slippy kind of feel to it. And if you put another silicone on top of it, that's fine, no problems. You can actually put a water-based primer and then put a silicone on top of it. That's not a problem. But if you take a silicone-based primer, do you remember when you were a kid and you'd color paper with a crayon and then you'd take a watercolor paint and you'd paint on top of it, how it would go onto the paper everywhere where the wax wasn't, and it would color that, and then on top of the wax it would like bead up? That, to an extent, it's not going to be that great at all, but to an extent that's what's going to happen. So your makeup, your water-based makeup is not going to sit on top of a silicone primer as well as it would a water-based primer. So if you are using one of the rarer water-based foundations, make sure you are using a water-based primer. That can be a big thing. Or switch to like a spray or something like that. I think that's all. I mean, I could go into all kinds of little details, but I just wanted to give you an overview of something that can be very, very confusing. And I hope I haven't confused you more. If you have any questions at all, if I don't know the answer, I will research it for you and I'll find it. If you have any suggestions of any primers that you love, or you have a particular problem that you have, and leave me the problem you have and the kind of foundation that you use, and I'll see if I can find some recommendations for you of what type of primers to use. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I just want to do like a beauty basics series and touch on some of these things. So the next time, I don't know, maybe we'll do foundations. We'll see what strikes my interest. But let me know what you thought of this video today. I really appreciate your support. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful time. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.